Good evening. This is Jack from Charting the Markets, and this is the Bigger Picture webinar for the evening of Wednesday, the 14th of January. My disclaimer: I do this for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some of what I'm doing, learn from it, transfer it to your own charts, and I'm not here to issue trading signals. This is a video for paying subscribers at CTM The Bigger Picture Subset.com. It's published on YouTube after a delay of a week. All right, great. Let's have a look at ES. Now, ES, we had a whole load of sell signals which fixed or brewing the other day. All but one of them have now made target. ES has made target. So a nice little decline here. Could this be a double top breaking down? No, but the one on SPX is a double top breaking down, I think. So we'll have a look at that. Qs, sell signal made target as well. RTY, the sell signal has not made target. And could fail. This one hardly actually declined, which was the reason, of course, it didn't make target. We've got a nice looking double top here on YM. That hasn't broken down. And actually, this was the only one this morning which actually had a buy signal, because the sell signal made target yesterday, but that failed during the decline today. DAX, sell signal made target. ESTX, sell signal has made the possible near miss targets. That leaves us with, well, one and a bit sell signals here at the moment. In terms of topping patterns, not really a lot to see on ES here. Nothing, in effect, to see on NQ. RTY might be forming a pattern. We've got a nice looking double top set up on YM and nothing really on DAX or ESTX. What does that mean? Means I'm not seeing a significant high being made here, but it could be that we're topping out for one, but we haven't actually got one. So we will see. Let's have a look at this on the bigger picture. Okay, ES, we went down and we tested the daily middle band today. That obviously isn't, obviously if you break the daily middle band, that is rather weak, but we didn't break the daily middle band. In terms of the overall setup, this is the wedge from the April low. It is still in action. We've not made a significant higher high over this. We've got a beautiful potential double top here and a large one, but open to question whether or not it will continue higher or not. It remains a beautiful double top. Not quite as nice on SPX, but it is pretty decent. And we've got a nice looking rising wedge from this 65.21 low as well. Now, I would say from the April low, from the original 4 rising wedges that I was looking there, 2 of them have expanded into larger wedges. And one of those is on Dia, and we have a very, very nice rising wedge here. And we've got another one on IWM. And IWM, that's expanded, and we've got basically 3 touches and a nice little overthrow here. Now, we haven't seen a sign of a reversal here. This could, of course, expand further. But we've got 2 pretty decent looking overall rises and wedges, which look ready to go down on these 2. In terms of the other 2, SPX, obviously, we had the initial one broke down in November, and since then we basically retested the high and gone a little higher. This could be an overall double top or a head and shoulders forming, but the thing I have been watching is this head and shoulder, this rising wedge here, which is showed in most detail on the 15-minute chart, and very nice looking wedge. Nice 3-touch trend line here. This is broken out. This could be topping out. I'd be leaning towards seeing a high retest. It would either be that or come down to this 68.24 area and then see a bounce. But normally you'd see a high retest, and I'm leaning towards seeing that here. In terms of the Qs, Qs never actually made it back into the retest of the all-time high before the breakdown in November. So the last new all-time high we saw on the Qs was in October. I didn't have a flag that went here directly when I was calling for all those flags to make new all-time highs. I was thinking that Qs would probably manage it as well. All the other flags made target. I have since developed a flag on the Qs, and this is the flag here, and that has broken up. And it was a nice looking flag channel. Very decent quality, and normally that would deliver a high retest, and I'm thinking that may well be coming next. On the 15-minute chart, we've got some buy signals, by the way, at the low this morning, and a nice looking rounding top on the SPX 1-minute chart. And I'm leaning towards seeing some rally tomorrow, and of course we've got a bullish dealing day on Friday. Looking at Dire, almost made it down to the daily middle band. Qs, we closed just above the daily middle band today. SPX, we went down and tested it and closed significantly above it. Dire, we didn't get close to it, and IWM never even tried. So nice looking little level top here on Dire, but it hasn't broken down. And really, we're probably going to need to break down below the daily middle band at this point to break down from it. Nice look, decent looking little, well, topping type action on SPX. But we haven't really got a lot in the way of reversal patterns here, and I'm not thinking that we're looking at an imminent decline. What I would say is that we may be in a topping process, and the second half of January tends to lean a bit towards the bearish side. So we will see how that develops. What I mainly look in terms of immediate signs is the kind of thing we had a couple of days ago when we had a string of sell signals forming or fixed in the morning. That's the sort of thing which tends to signal a decline, and that is the decline we've seen. But they've now all made target. We've held the daily middle bands across the board. That's not leaving a lot of space for further downside, I don't think. And we've got some positive divergences at the lows this morning. Okay, let's have a look at IWM in detail. This is again the rising wedge from the 228.13 low, and it's nice. This looks like a bearish overthrow. It could be expanding into a larger wedge. There would be other options for this, and it could be we'd even make it back in due course to this trend line here, which would mean, of course, this too had expanded. We will see. In terms of the 15-minute chart, we've still got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed, and that's because it never really went down. We actually made a new all-time high today. So IWM, I'm wondering why this is the strongest here and Qs are the weakest here. I think it might be. I mean, there is sort of a narrative that IWM is the most sensitive to interest rates. And so it may be that that people are getting more optimistic about interest rates coming down. But to be honest, for me, it's just all the stuff that's been happening with the Fed and, the pressure and Trump trying to take it over. It's all based on a completely stupid misapprehension, which is that the Fed actually controls interest rates. It doesn't. It never did. They've cut rates about 1.5% in the last couple of years, and real interest rates, which are bond yields, went up. I wrote a whole post about it in November 24, talking about the imminent rate cut that was being expected and why it wasn't likely to have much of an impact. And interest and yields rose up afterwards. The best thing the government could do if it wanted to reduce interest rates was actually get a grip on spending. Interest rates, a basic measure of the bond market is assessing its risk. When it's considering what interest rate to be, it's a rate of inflation, but obviously the risk of lending. And the more that the US national debt goes up without any plan, seemingly for it to do anything other than continue going up and continuing possibly even to accelerate, the longer that remains the case, the riskier lending to the US becomes. That's what puts up rates, and it's bond yields that all US lending is based on. It's mortgages are all based on the 30-year yield, because at the end of the day, why would you lend someone for less than you can actually just park it in a treasury for? No reason. And that's why the baseline for these kinds of borrowings are the 10-year yield, the 5-year yield, and 30-year yield for respective borrowing terms for everybody, including the government. And that's why I don't really see anything to be excited about on IWM, because at the moment I'm not really seeing much reason to think that interest rates will be going down at all over the next year, and that likely wouldn't change even if Trump got full control of the Fed. The problem is he doesn't know that. All right, DAX. DAX, no current negative divergence, continuing to make higher highs. Nikkei, this was, apart from the Qs, this was the last one I was expecting to see a high retest. Obviously, it's going significantly beyond that at the moment. But we had a nice looking flag triangle here. It broke up, and that's made target. The only all-time high, which I was thinking would likely get retested that hasn't been retested yet, is actually on NDX, on NASDAQ. Tech has been trailing the market, which isn't a good sign for this year because tech was carrying the market last year. If it's not going to be going up a great deal this year, then it's not going to be a great year on the markets. So, and I think there's every reason to be wary of tech at the moment, and I suspect people will be getting more wary as the year wears on. All right, let's have a look at bear with me a moment. All right, let's have a look at the dollar. Okay, looking at DX. DX, we had this nice move up. I was talking about this possible megaphone. We haven't gone back and tested megaphone support. I'm wondering if we might. I think a likely bull flag is forming, and I'm still quite liking the prospects of making this double bottom target in the 99.35 to 99.43 area. I think that's looking pretty good. Rest of them look pretty supportive, not as supportive as they were, because of course they've already gone down quite a bit from when I was talking about the supportive setups on UUSD, GBP/USD, USD/JPY. The UUSD has broken down for a double top. It's got a target in the 116 area, and I'm pretty sure it's on the way. GBP/USD has broken down for a double top. I'm more skeptical about this. This broke down later, and the rally has been stronger, but it's still then potentially with a shot, depending on what happens with DX. USD/JPY, I was saying this was supportive because I had unfinished business to the upside, but that was at this line here, and obviously we've gone beyond it. That's no longer supportive, but I've still got targets higher up on USD/JPY. This wasn't going to be a ceiling. There was just a level which needed a full retest and then a decision on what would happen there. USD/CAD, we've got a double bottom, an IHS, which is broken up with a target in the 1.405 area. I'm liking the odds of that making target. Not a lot to see on Australian dollar or NZ. Both of them, I've got tapping patterns either broken down or forming, but they're not actually of any particular importance in terms of the DX basket. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. And okay, here, bigger picture, of course, we've got this lovely bull flag, which I'm increasingly thinking isn't going to, has very little chance of making it up to 1478 retest target, which would be the flag target, because the administration is doing absolutely nothing to support the dollar in terms of making it more credible and keeping it credible. It's, in fact, pissing off traditional allies who all own large amounts of US debt and basically all have agreed that the dollar will be the reserve currency. Pissing them off is a good way to make sure that the dollar goes down and the US dollar becomes a lot less important as a reserve currency. That is a major risk this administration is taking. It hasn't bounced on them yet, but the problem is by the time it becomes obvious that there is a crisis, it might actually be too late to do much about it. We will see. But I'm watching this space. I think possibly the worst thing they could do for the value of the dollar would be invade Greenland, as I suspect that would leave a lot of NATO members at the minimum cutting back very, very heavily on their US Treasury holdings and regarding holding money in the US as an increasingly high risk. So at that stage, there are alternatives, and I think the US dollar would be under a lot of pressure. In the short term, we've got a double bottom, which is broken up here. We had a retracement that formed really what looks like a flag. So I'm thinking this has got a pretty good chance of getting back up into a retest this high at 139, and then we would see whether or not we would continue higher. As I said, not a lot of reason to be optimistic, but we do have a beautiful setup here. This is a lovely looking setup here. I would be expecting a topping pattern to form here anyway. We don't really have one at the moment. A setup of a retest of 114.78 would set up a beautiful level top. But as I have mentioned before, we could actually get the same result just by this bull flag, which is very nice, breaking down instead. It would be a much less usual way to do it, but it doesn't actually require going up. Okay, let's have a quick look. Sorry, I'm just going to edit this very slightly. It's one of my trend lines is going astray. All right, so that's where we are on that. This is the close view of the flag. It's really very, very nice, and I've been looking for this to go up for most of the last year. We haven't seen a lot of action to the upside. It may be that we're going to be seeing some soon, but well, I don't know. Every time Trump opens his mouth and says something, that is guaranteed to piss off everyone who actually has traditionally regarded the US as a friend, then I worry about the dollar, and I worry about US Treasuries. All right, US daily, no current divergence. We had a buy signal here, which has made target. We don't have a sell signal here yet, but we could get one on a retest of this current high, and that could potentially deliver. As I said, much depends on the administration. In terms of that big bear flag on the US dollar, bull flag on the US dollar, of course, we've got a lovely bear flag on EURUSD. We've got a lovely bear flag on GBP/USD. And it's still possible these could all actually deliver that retest of the high on the US dollar. But as I said, I've got my doubts. In terms of the euro, we could set up a buy signal here, but really I'm leaning towards the downside here as the dollar goes up. GBP/USD, we've actually got a weak RSI 14 sell signal fixed here, which is supporting more downside. USD JPY, this is the target I'm thinking of on the upside. I've got that up in the 162 area, and I was thinking if we did retest that potentially could be a very nice looking double top. Upside looks limited here because I've got this lovely looking rising megaphone. That could always break up, of course. Any pattern can, but nonetheless, as long as it remains the case, it is a very strong looking pattern. And is suggesting that upside is going to be limited. In terms of USD JPY on the daily chart, no current divergence. Getting back up into obviously the retest of these highs areas, we're almost back up at 160. USD CAD has been trading this range for 10 years. We're still in this range, but I'm thinking it might go up more within it. There's more scope for upside than there is on USD JPY, but not an awful lot without breaking up out of this range. In terms of what's interesting actually here was if you have a look back at USD JPY, this flag actually started 22. And that makes what's happened on CAD pretty interesting, just as an aside, because 22 was here. And you can see we've been trading this range here. It looks very different on the US dollar, but just a departure from there. But in terms of signals, nothing yet at the moment. There's potential for some to form, but nothing here at the moment. Australian dollar on the daily chart, we've got a weak RSI 14 sell signal fixed and nothing on the NZ at the moment. All right, let's have a look at bonds. Now, bonds, we had an original bear flag which broke down, never retested the low, and since then, I think we've been in what looks like a bearish consolidation. I'm liking the downside here, and that does fit with the bigger picture, where, of course, you can see starting to slide off this chart as we trade sideways. We've got a large head and shoulders, which is broken down with a target in the 112.04 area on ZN. This looks like a basically a sideways consolidation. I've drawn a triangle around it as we're making lower highs and higher lows. But here we've got a double top, which is broken down with a target in the 110.17 to 110.12 area. And I'm liking those on the bigger picture. A bit of support for that on the bigger picture. In the last few days on the TYX chart, we've actually got, well, it's not, nothing immediately happening here, but we have got this bull flag set up here and this declining resistance, which has broken up. I'm liking the upside here. We've got an IHS here, which is also broken up with a target in the 50.1 area. It's nice. Looking at TNX, we've got either an IHS which is broken up, which I've got shown on the 60-minute chart, which I'll show next, or a larger one forming here. Again, this looks like a bullish consolidation before this goes higher into at least a high retest. And you can see the IHS I've drawn in here with a target up here in the 43.9 area. Looking at FVX, which is the 5-year yield, which I did just to give myself another opinion. This looks like a bullish triangle again, leading up to, and these aren't bullish for bonds; these are bearish for bonds because these are all charts of the yields which are inverse to the bonds. But again, pretty nice looking triangle there, and the short-term move looks higher, and the long-term move on a setup like this will generally be higher. TLT looks rather different, and I have to say, if I was feeling bullish about bonds at all, I'd be wondering about possible IHS forming here on the TLT monthly chart. And I've drawn in some errors there, but it's just been trading sideways. It's here I've got possible flag, maybe. But we do have a head and shoulders, which is also broken down with a target in the 84.7 area. Overall, the accent is to the downside. Again, this could be a flag breaking up. I'm very doubtful about bonds going up, and I'm not seeing anything to suggest that really on the yields charts. But there are some sort of possible green sheets of hope for bonds going up on the TLT chart. They just don't match. They're not really confirmed by anything on the others. Okay, let's have a look at oil. Now, oil, we've seen a bit of a rally over the last few days. Not quite sure why that is. I think what the US is doing with Venezuela is giving some disruption to world oil flows, but for whatever reason, it saw a strong rally. We've got a 6-minute sell signal. Oh, by the way, these the US charts look a little odd because the odd, strange things have been happening with my data. I'm hoping that'll just clear out this week. Otherwise, we need to redraw these, and I might need to do some significant surgery on these to get them back. Not quite sure why this has happened, hoping it will go away by itself, but that's why some of these look a little odd, because we're actually missing some information. That was a high there, which for instance is no longer there. So because it was out of hours, and some of my out of hours data has disappeared, but not all of it. Anyway, moving on from that, we've got a 6-minute sell signal fixed. We've actually gone quite a bit since that 60-minute sell signal fixed, but we did see some rejection today. I'm thinking that's probably going to make target in the next couple of days. I've got another one on HO. I've got another one on RBOB. What I would say on HO and RBOB, I've got an IHS which is broken up on HO with a target in the 2.3035 area. We haven't made target on that yet. And RBOB, I've got a double bottom which is broken up with a target in the 1.856 to 1.863 area, and that hasn't made target either. They're not that far away, but I'm still leaning towards those making target. On RBOB, of course, the 60-minute sell signal has now reached the possible near miss target. Okay, let's have a look at NG, where we have made a lower low. I was saying when we broke down and when we retested this low here, which again has disappeared with my current slight data issue. The charts are still pretty reliable, but it's mainly it's pissing me off. So but I'm hoping that will fix itself shortly. But what I was saying when we retested this low here was that we had a potential double bottom, or we could continue down, and clearly we have continued down. And at the moment we are still continuing down, and we've made a lower low on that today. I'll talk more about that on the bigger picture chart, and so let's go over to the bigger picture charts now. Okay, looking at WTIC, we've seen a bit of a rally here. We had a bit of a falling wedge, wasn't bad. We've seen a rally which has taken us back up to the 200 DMA, which is a pretty good level to be failing at, if it is failing. But I think looking at the action here, it may well be failing. In terms of the daily chart, no current negative divergence. See a bit of a pullback and retest that, and that could change. Bigger picture, obviously we've got this big falling wedge, and we've got a potential lower bottom here now, and I'm wondering whether we might see a break up. But at the moment, I'm not seeing the trigger for seeing that break up. We'll see. I'm going to be proposing a possible way that could happen, which could be if we see a major issue in Russian oil, which of course is being enthusiastically bombed by the Ukrainians. So, and that is a possibility, but I'm just wondering at the moment whether that would really cause enough of a spike. Anyway, in terms of gas oil, I've got a lovely looking double bottom. Heating oil, we've got an inverted head and shoulders which broke up and failed. Normally, I'd be leaning towards seeing a retest of the low here. So until demonstrated otherwise, I am looking for that. Natural gas. Now, natural gas, we had a big move up, which I have to say had me thinking we were probably going to make this one of the, at least the lower double bottom target here. And then we had a very strong rejection. That rejection is now so strong that it's taken us back below the daily middle band for, well, if it persists into the end of the month, it's taken us below the monthly middle band in the first time for over a year. Now that could be pretty significant. On the weekly chart, we are now well below the daily middle band, having lost that at about the 370 area, and I am wondering seriously about a test of this rising support in the 250 area. But if we get there, it's entirely possible that what we're looking at here is actually a bear flag, and then we're going to see a full reversal back to the low at 1.886. That would be interesting. In the short term, though, we've got an RSI 5 buy signal which is fixed on the daily chart, and I am wondering about a rally here. So we will see. If we don't see that, we could just trickle down into the next big low, which I've got in the 2.65 area. All right, great. Let's have a look at metals. Okay, GC. I've got a nice looking rising channel here, which I'm watching. So we're retracing a bit. Week 6-minute sell signal on fixed, and actually that's now reached the possible near miss target. SI, this was powering up and actually made it all the way up to 90, almost 94, which was very impressive. We've been seeing a bit of a pullback today. 60-minute sell signal was brewing and has almost reached the possible near miss target yet. So we are seeing a bit of a retrace across the board. Palladium again has come off a bit. No sell signal there. We do have an IHS which is broken up here with a target in the 2010 area, and I'm kind of leaning towards it making that target. On platinum, we've got a target at a retest of this high here, just below 25.50, and again, that hasn't been made, and I'm leaning towards that being made. HG, we're at an inflection point here. I was looking for the retest of this high. We have seen it, and that high, of course, is potentially the second high of a double top. So at the moment, we're coming down. Monthly pivot it's come down to monthly pivot here, and if it breaks below that, we get down to the weekly pivot area, but I've got possible double top support in the 5.7 area. Now, I'm not sure why copper's gone up this way, but I have been reading that copper is very important in building data centers, and even if nothing else is happening in the US economy at the moment, that looks particularly great, they are building a lot of data centers, so maybe that can keep prices up. In terms of house building, that definitely isn't supporting the copper price here. All right, let's have a look at that on the bigger picture. And on gold, no current negative divergence, making higher highs. This was a consolidation triangle. We've gone up, we've made higher highs, and we're continuing higher at the moment. The retest of this high, if this is a double top, it still could be just about, but there's no obvious reason to think that it is. In terms of silver, we do have a possible RSI 14 sell signal brewing here, but we have been seeing repeatedly during these drives up this kind of divergence, which then gets driven out of the way because it just continues powering up. Can silver go higher? Well, I remember there was a friend of my daughter's at school who was interested in finance, and we were chatting, and she was doing spent a week sort of working with me to get some experience for something or other. But I was talking to her about silver, which has been an enthusiasm of mine for a while, and I was talking about the possibility. I think it was about 14 and a half bucks at the time, but I was talking about the possibility that over the next couple of decades, I thought that might reach 300. So admittedly, we've taken out the all-time high at 50, and we've almost doubled it here. But I'm just saying, bigger picture and the longer term, I'm thinking silver could go a lot higher than this. And actually, if we do see a lot of trouble for the dollar, it could be very, very good for all of the precious metals. In terms of palladium, we have an IHS here, we've broken up, and we haven't made the target here. I'm leaning towards that making target in the 25.50 area sometime in the next year or so. I think, I know that the precious metals market has done very well. I think there's more to come. On the platinum chart, we had an IHS like that break up, and that's already made target. So obviously made a new, I'm not sure I've got enough data to declare that an all-time high, but I suspect it is a new all-time high. And palladium is well short of that, but could be, on the way. I think palladium is used very heavily in catalytic converters, and obviously with the switch over to electric cars, that's going to be affecting demand on that. But nonetheless, palladium's been performing pretty well. In terms of the daily charts on both, no current divergence on, hang on. Well, we've got a weak RSI 14 sell signal fixed, an RSI 5 sell signal fixed here, and these haven't made target yet, but a lot of these precious metals signals have just been failing, like this last one on platinum weekly chart, for instance, which just died. It's on the daily chart, we've got a weak RSI 14 sell signal fixed. As I said, not been having a great track record on these lately, but still potentially in there. But and this could potentially be topping out, but I'd still be leaning towards seeing a high retest. Looking at copper, Copper's actually very close to the trendline resistance I drew in. I'm wondering if it might need to go a little higher into just under 6.2 to get there. We'll see. It might do. In terms of divergence, we've got some divergence on. No, I think we had. Yeah, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed on the copper monthly chart. On the daily chart, we do have a possible RSI 14 daily sell signal brewing and an RSI 5 sell signal fixed. And this wouldn't be a bad time to see some decent retracement. We shall see. Looking at GDX, I've got big, scary divergences forming on the weekly charts. Don't know if they'll ever amount to anything. Of course, it would need to go down for the signals to fix. In terms of where we've gone to massive new all-time highs on GDX, having massively overtaken the the old highs, which were these ones here at about 58.50. So obviously we've almost doubled that now. GDXJ is still getting back there. Haven't quite made it, but I've been talking about it getting there in the not too distant future, and actually it's almost made it. So once it gets back to 130.8, having made it up to 129.42 today, once we get back up there, then it's going to be looking pretty good. So, and we'll be at new all-time highs there. Is there any sign of this turning? Apart from the big weekly divergences, not an awful lot, and very little on the hourly charts. So we'll see. We've seen a very muted decline on both of those today. Okay, let's have a look at the commodities. Right, KC, we had this spike up and it's been coming down again. We had a double top, it broke down, sell signal, it made target, and it's at the moment testing those lows, and I'm wondering whether it's going to hit this trend line and whether this might possibly be part of an overall pattern, or whether we may actually just be heading back to the lows. We shall see. All right, sugar, likely overall bear flag forming. Look, wondering if that might be getting close to breaking down now. On CC, we had a spike up, and then, well, we had a bull flag form, and that bull flag broke down. Normally after this, I would expect to see a retest of the low, and we've come very close to delivering that. We've got a 60-minute buy signal fixed. On CT, we've got... Bear with me a moment. Right, it appears the annually chart here on CT is not going to be cooperating temporarily. So hang on, let's see. Actually, I might be able to... okay. Right. CT, we've got the double bottom, which is broken up, of course, and that's got a target up here in the 66.8 to 67 area. We're consolidating after the breakup, and I'm still leaning towards that making target. Lumber, slightly to my surprise, has actually broken up from the very nice looking double bottom there. That's got a target in the 643.25 to 646.5 area. No current negative divergence. On wheat, nice looking double bottom, broke up, rejected almost back to the lows, probably going to continue down to the lows. On corn, we had this very big move here. Week 6-minute buy signal is fixed from there, and we're seeing a muted rally, but at the moment it looks like a bear flag forming. On soy, obviously the Chinese didn't buy the Trump administration said they were going to buy 12 million tons of soy. They didn't, and soy prices went up on the news and then came down with the unfortunate reality. Not seeing much reason to think this is going to change now, but I would say we've now got currently, with the current retest of this low, we've now got a very nice looking little level bottom here. So I'm waiting to see if we can see some action to the upside, and we've got a 60-minute buy signal fixed. On ZL, could be an overall bear flag forming. Gone a little high for that, maybe. 60-minute sell signal is reaching the possible near miss target area. On live cattle broke up over this area here and seems to be doing trading another range slightly above it. Leaning bullish on that. Lean hogs, again, broke up from one range into a slightly higher range. This could be a double top forming, but I'm leaning towards the upside on that as well. All right, let's have a look at that on the bigger picture chart. And looking at coffee, we've got a very nice looking double top, which is actually broken down here with a target in about the 2.65 area. I'm leaning towards that and making that target. But at the moment, it's not showing a lot of enthusiasm for doing that. It's seen a rally, went back up to the week to middle band and has failed there so far. Looking at the daily charts, no current divergence. Nice looking double top. Not seeing anything particularly suggest that isn't going to make target. It's just being a little slow. Sugar, still wondering about this target down below in the 9.0 area. Short term, this looks like a bad flag for me. And in the not too distant future, I'm leaning towards seeing a retest of this low. Overall, I'd be leaning towards more downside. Cocoa. Cocoa, we saw a big support break here, and we've seen some chopping action since then, but there's likely further down to go. We are, like coffee, we're well out of the comfort zone for long-term trading prices. In terms of the daily charts, potential double bottom forming here, but ideally we'd see a retest of the low first. On wheat, nice looking double bottom broke up here. It's actually got most of the way back to the bottom, and it may be because it's on the way back to the bottom. On corn, we saw on this spike down, we saw a big move down below the weekly middle band. We've not seen a close below that yet, but obviously we'll see that potentially on Friday. In terms of the daily charts, obviously we went down a long way below the daily lower band on the bottom of this spec down. I'd be looking for some consolidation, and at the moment it looks like that's all we're getting. On soybeans, this flag broke up, but well, I'm wondering if it might make target anyway. We are back below the weekly middle band. In terms of the daily middle band, we're back below that as well, and it's holding as resistance, leaning towards the downside. Unless we see some, I think it's fairly grim for soybean farmers at the moment, unless the Chinese actually start buying. But I was reading something about the Chinese and the Brazilians having an issue, so maybe that can get something back. And equally, I think there are going to be some talks between Trump and Xi in the next month or so, and maybe they might be prepared to make a better commitment this time. Cotton. Nice looking short-term double bottom. Really, this has actually been spending the whole of the last year or so just trading sideways. Nice looking potential double bottom here, and I am wondering if that might play out at some point. Lumber, bigger picture. Smaller picture, we're breaking up from a little double bottom. Bigger picture, we've got a big looking double top which is broken down. This is all within an overall flag, which when it breaks down, we'd have a target at where the double top target is, which is approximately a retest of this low here at 35250. I'm really liking that. It seems reluctant to come down. It's been trading sideways for quite a while, but the bigger picture is very bearish, so we shall see. All right, great. Let's have a final look at crypto. Okay. In terms of crypto, when I was talking about this weeks ago now, and I've got to say it's been a boring run waiting. This has been from, it's basically taken, 3 weeks. It felt longer. But I was talking about the possibility that this flag would expand and get to this trend line here. It reached it today. In terms of Solana, I was talking about the possibility we might break up from this double bottom and fail there, and we broke up from the double bottom in the last day. Ethereum, I didn't really have a great target for that, but we've almost made it back to this high here at 345503. This could be a triangle forming here, so actually I haven't been thinking we necessarily needed to see a high. Bigger picture, do we have any negative divergence here? Only on Solana. Solana's got a very nice looking potential RSI 5 sell signal brewing. We haven't got any on the others, but this is where I was expecting it to come up to before failing into the lower targets, which on Solana are the head and shoulder target of the retest of the low at 95.24. On Ethereum would be the head and shoulder target down here about the 2050 area. And if we went lower on Bitcoin, then I was leaning towards that, heading towards this big support area here at 74.4K. But if this is a flag, then we should be at minimum seeing a retest of the low here at 80.6K. All right, great. In that case, I think that's a wrap. Everyone take care, and I'll catch you guys again on Sunday.